Welcome to TradeTheMBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 21st of September, and well, just like we thought when we saw this beginning here with the MBI white moving above red, where we already had the magenta and yellow below the 33, and continuation. And then once we got the magenta over, the white over the magenta MBI, I pointed out that previous history, we were looking at least the 50% and potentially all the way to the zero, depending on how things progressed after that took place. Didn't take them long. I mean, literally, we broke down below the 61% here and literally blew through the 50 all the way to the 23, and then late afternoon buyers pushed it back up towards that 38%, whether they'll be able to hold on to that one. We'll see. What we're seeing is a bit of a yellow pop and that extreme red dip. Looking at the reading was on the red there. 3.94 before, and then it dipped all the way to negative 0.84. And every time we get to that sub-zero, we usually get some type of a bounce that takes place within there. So the question will be whether or not magenta will rise with that, and if it does, then we'll probably start to see a little bit more of a buyback within this configuration. But needless to say, that was a significant move because it took out the low that we had back here in mid-August and literally was getting close to approaching the dip that took place in July. And move to the 0% would certainly take that portion out. So it was by far the most significant dip people have seen in quite some time, at least from a consecutive standpoint. NQ had been much stronger, but it's still expressing weakness comparative to the S&P, so that could continue to be a drag overall. So that's definitely worth noting, and certainly would be problematic, at least for a build standpoint. So I mean, just see holding on, and from a gold standpoint, some of that flight was straight to gold. The other location you would have expected would be cryptos, but my thought was that cryptos might suffer some on some of the margin calls that would have to take place, that some of the people that used it as a hedge might use that to balance out this kind of situation, or use it as new dry powder in order to buy up on the dip. From a euro standpoint, it held off pretty well on its weakness. The dollar started off pretty strong, and then it kind of gave back just a little bit of it. And from an oil standpoint, also a little bit of softness. And a lot of this is going to be, talk about the contagion from the China real estate situation, which has credit implications, well, all over the world, actually, with a lot of different banks and future economic activity. So there was Bitcoin here. It continued to suffer. We had that MBI spike back over here, and then it was just a matter of waiting for the first signals to start, and it had its first decline, and then MBI white stayed above it again, and that led to the complete breakdown, which still overall down 8% for the day, but all it did was fill back in the positive extremes that led to this original move. So nothing out of the ordinary. Busy 5K chart, what you're looking at here with these yellow dots is merely whenever we're below the 23% and there's no steel reset, meaning it either dips to the 1 level or below cyan and back above. So that continuous read says not interested in buying up any signals that come until that changes. Also, I like to look at this where we have the long algo, and as soon as it turns around from an upside pivot standpoint, then it becomes a little more viable. Correspondingly, they ended the yellow dots pretty close to that same point. You can see that's when we ended up with that full dip of the steel, and that led to the first rally going through, but that was short-lived, so to speak. It just kind of traded across for a while, and then we started to get a few spikes. Every time the MBI white here came into the lead, drove back down to the 0, and then in the last pop we had this MBI set up, and that took out the lows right there. And again, the MBI white popped above, and you can see that with the red dots, and the red just represents where DOC cyan is over, under green, and the DOC green right there popping above. But then once it breaks it becomes that move, and that led to the next set of lows, which took us minus 100 plus, and then kind of traded off and kept giving back after every one of these MBI white spikes. And this was an interesting one because as soon as it spiked and below the 50%, I really like to attack those setups right in there. And so attacked that early, just waiting for the expectation, and sure enough, it fulfilled it by dipping. And that took us into the minus 120 range. We were already at 42.93, and then as we got to within 20, 30 minutes of market close, buy algos kicked into not only just short covering started it early on, but then it just exacerbated itself once it got to the 50%. And as soon as it got close over there, it was boom, took off, and it's cyan into red, which happened early enough. It's right about there at 38%, and literally just expanded. Now, a lot of positive extremes within that, going all the way back to the beginning of that move, so down to the 43.07, potentially all of those face filling on additional weakness. So that will be what we're looking for as it takes place. Doesn't mean we still can't see additional rise before that takes place. It was a pretty strong shakeout move right there, but we'll see in after hours as there's a much softer market whether or not they're going to be able to drive this back up any. If there's still those that need to get out from a margin situation and stuff like that, they're really going to need a nice bounce in the pre-market in order to avoid those kind of situations. So we'll see how that plays out. As always, though, I'll keep posting charts and update you as indicators warn. Trade well. We'll talk to you later.